They mocked her for being slow, old, and forgettable until she mentioned a cold case, a hidden name, and a date that made a gang leader nearly drop his cigarette. It was just past 2:30 on a Wednesday afternoon when Gloria Mays stepped out of Davis Grocery on Route 49, clutching a plastic bag with a bottle of peach sweet tea and a pack of sugar-free mints. The heat was pressing down heavy on Yazoo County, Mississippi, and Gloria's hips were already reminding her that she'd skipped her stretches that morning. She wore a plain blue house dress, sturdy orthopedic shoes, and a wide-brimmed straw hat. Her walker had tennis balls on the back legs, the rubber soles worn smooth from years of use.
There was nothing fancy about her,
and she liked it that way. She didn't need fancy. What she needed was a quiet porch and her garden. But quiet wasn't what she walked into. 3 motorcycles sat angled in front of the store, chrome gleaming, engines cooling with ticking sounds. Their riders leaned against the wall, smoking and jawing like they owned the pavement. They wore the patch of the Iron Teeth MC, a local outlaw biker crew more bark than bite, but still rough enough to make folks cross the street. Gloria had clocked them going in, but paid them no mind. She'd dealt with tougher men in war zones. As she eased past them, head down, trying not to draw attention, one of them snorted.
"Look at that old fossil," he said,
loud enough for everyone within 30 feet to hear.
"Where's the museum tag,
Granny?"
The others chuckled.
Another one chimed in with a fake cough, mocking the sound of her wheeled walker scraping across the concrete. Gloria stopped walking, just for one beat. She didn't turn her head,
kept her back to them, and adjusted the handle on her bag.
"Must have fought in the Civil War," one of them said.
"Or was it the dinosaurs?"
That got a real laugh out of the group. The leader, a big man with arms covered in ink and a rust-colored beard braided at the tip, took a long drag from his cigarette and added, "She's a relic."
"Man."
Straight out of black and white TV, Gloria turned slowly. Her eyes met his. The air around them got quiet, not from fear, just from the sudden weight of her stillness.
"Excuse me," she said,
her voice calm and even.
"What did you call me?"
He smirked.
"I said you're a relic, Grandma. Time's passed you by.
You should be sitting at home watching your soaps." A younger biker standing to the left let out a low whistle.
Like this was about to go somewhere fun.
He elbowed the guy beside him,
waiting for the show.
But Gloria didn't yell.
She didn't shake.
She just let her bag hang off one arm and shifted her weight onto her left leg.
"See?
Here's what you don't understand,"
she said, looking straight at the leader.
"You boys think you know everything, but I've been around long enough to see men like you come and go. And trust me, most of them don't age well." That got a couple of eyebrows raised. But the leader wasn't done puffing up.
"Lady," he said,
stepping closer, "why don't you go finish your shopping run or maybe call your grandkids to come pick you up?" Gloria didn't move. She didn't flinch.
"Tell me,"
she said suddenly, her tone shifting just slightly. "Do you still go by Masonhurst?
Or do you prefer Ridge these days?"
The laughter cut short. The man stiffened. The others exchanged glances. One of them even straightened off the wall.
"Excuse me," the leader asked.
Gloria took a slow step forward. March 14th, 1996.
An abandoned barn,
2 miles outside Red Bluff, California. That rang a bell. His eyes narrowed.
"Who the hell are you? I'm just an old woman,"
Gloria said, with a long memory and friends who used to have access to places you'd rather forget. The silence that followed didn't feel like victory.
It felt like a warning.
But instead of backing down, the old lady did something that made even the cockiest biker pause. Mason, if that was still the name he used, took a half step back.
Just a twitch,
barely noticeable to anyone not paying close attention.
But Gloria saw it.
Years of reading body language had trained her eyes. She saw the way his fingers curled near his waistband,
how his nostrils flared,
how the laughter from his crew faded into wary glances and throat clearing.
The youngest one, maybe mid-20s,
with a nervous tick in his jaw, muttered,
"How'd you know his name?"
"Man, shut up." Mason snapped. Gloria lifted her bag and gently set it on the bench by the ice machine, not breaking eye contact. "I don't need to raise my voice,"
she said.
"I don't need to threaten you, because men like you, loud, flippant, careless, always give themselves away eventually." Mason squinted, trying to mask the way his eyes darted.
"Lady, you got no clue what you're talking about."
"You're messing with something you don't understand."
"Oh,
I understand more than you think." She adjusted the strap of her walker. "You've been hiding behind motorcycles and dirty vests so long. You forgot that the truth still has a habit of resurfacing when you least expect it." The biker on Mason's right, stocky, skin sunburned, with a skull tattoo on his neck, whispered something under his breath.
Mason didn't respond.
His eyes stayed locked on Gloria.
And now he wasn't smiling.
"You want me to believe you're some kind of mind reader?" he asked, feigning a chuckle.
"That you dug through my life like some armchair detective."
"No," Gloria said softly. "I don't expect you to believe anything. But let me remind you, the name on that barn, Ridge, it wasn't painted over until a year later. And the sheriff's report, It disappeared the same week the girl's family stopped calling.
Now the bystanders were paying attention.
A middle-aged woman in a denim dress had stopped her car across the street. She cracked the window and pulled out her phone. Two high schoolers walking home from school were whispering behind the snack machines. One of the store clerks stepped out, drying his hands on his apron.
You need to watch your mouth,
Mason said through clenched teeth.
You don't know what you're stirring up.
You ever wonder why that case never made the news?
Gloria asked.
Her tone dipping into something colder.
Or why?
After all these years, no one's come asking about that girl.
You think that's luck?
He clenched his fists. His body leaned forward, but his feet stayed planted. You think because I'm old,
I'm harmless.
that I'm some worn-out lady buying mints and tea who wouldn't remember anything beyond last week. But I wasn't just a name on a payroll. I spent years in Army intelligence interrogations,
Surveillance.
disinformation, cleaning up messes far bigger than the ones you've tried to hide behind tattoos and leather. She let that hang. Her voice didn't tremble. Her stance was sure.
Mason didn't speak.
His crew looked at him differently now, less like a leader.
More like a question mark.
And Gloria knew that's what men like him hated most. When the people around them started seeing their cracks, she stepped closer, not threatening, but unshaken. I didn't come here to embarrass you,
She said,
but you chose the wrong person on the wrong day.
You mocked me. You wanted a show?
Now you've got an audience. Phones were up now, recording no shouting,
No crowd.
just the eerie quiet that comes when power shifts.
I didn't forget about the barn,
Gloria added.
and I'm not the only one.
Mason didn't blink. His mouth parted slightly,
Like a man trying to remember whether to fight or flee.
but Gloria wasn't finished. She was just warming up. Most people in Yazoo County just knew Gloria Mays as Miss Gloria, the old widow with a neat porch, rose bushes that never seemed to wilt, and an opinion about every mayor the town had ever had. She attended the same Baptist church for 40 years. Her voice was always calm, her movements slow but purposeful. But no one ever asked her what she did before she moved into that faded white house with the creaky screen door. No one asked where she went every year in April, why she kept the blinds shut during storms,
Or why she always sat facing the front entrance in restaurants.
because folks in quiet towns rarely look past what they can see. Before Mississippi,
Before retirement.
and before arthritis claimed her knees, Gloria had spent over 3 decades in Army intelligence. She'd enlisted at 19 out of Tulsa,
Oklahoma.
lying about her age by a few months just to get in. She was one of the only Black women in her unit and the first to make it into a specialized cryptologic training program. Her specialty, extracting information without anyone realizing what she was doing, surveillance,
Profiling.
tactical memory. Gloria had eyes like a hawk and a mind that cataloged details like a warehouse. While others were busy playing catch-up, she was already 5 steps ahead. Germany in the 80s, Kuwait in the 90s. Domestic counterintelligence work in LA during the early 2000s, she'd been where most men wouldn't dare step foot. And not just to observe,
But to handle messes, dangerous ones. The kind that don't get news coverage.
the kind no family ever hears about. There was one assignment in particular,
San Diego, 2005.
a rogue contractor who thought no one was watching. Gloria posed as a church receptionist for 3 months. It ended with 2 arrests and a shutdown of an entire intelligence ring, all without firing a shot, all without needing to be in the room when it ended. She'd learned long ago that power wasn't always about being loud,
It was about being precise.
unshakable, knowing the kind of truths that made grown men sweat without a single threat being spoken. But that kind of life leaves marks not all visible. You start forgetting birthdays and remembering call signs. You flinch at backfiring engines, and you keep secrets.
Even from the people who love you.
Gloria's husband,
Harold.
passed Vesey without ever knowing half the places she'd been. Her niece assumed she was just some kind of secretary in the military. She let them believe it safest that way. After retirement, she picked Mississippi because no one knew her there. Just land,
Silence.
and enough space to grow vegetables and sit in peace. But the part of her that tracked movement,
Memorized faces.
and listened more than she spoke that never turned off. So when she walked into that store earlier that afternoon, she had already clocked Mason Hurst's tattoos,
One of them, a faded sigil.
was used by a white supremacist cell that had crossed her desk back in 1997. She caught the way he kept checking the alley to the right of the building, classic paranoia. And she noticed the scar behind his left ear, a scar matching the mugshot from an old,
Sealed report.
one connected to an investigation she'd been pulled into during her final year of service. He'd changed his name, most criminals with something to hide do, and his file was never fully closed. But Gloria remembered the barn,
She remembered the case number.
and she remembered that the girl was never found. That alone would have been enough to haunt her,
But Mason, standing there, laughing at her.
mocking her body, her age, her worth that flipped a switch. Sometimes the past doesn't stay buried, especially when it's staring danger in the face. Back in front of Davis Grocery, the mood had shifted. You could feel it in the stillness, no more jokes, no more cheap laughs, just the quiet pressure of being watched by people who suddenly realized this wasn't a joke anymore. Gloria stood there like she had all the time in the world. Mason Hurst didn't. His eyes darted from face to face, trying to gauge how much damage had been done. Phones were still recording.
The moment was out of his hands, and he knew it.
"You don't know what you're saying,"
He said.
his voice lower now.
That barn, that was a long time ago, so it was you.
Gloria replied.
Eyes steady, one of the younger bikers.
The one with the nervous jaw tick took a slow step back from the group.
His body stiffened, like he wanted no part of whatever this was turning into.
Mason turned to him sharply.
Don't move.
But Gloria raised her hand gently.
Let him, she said.
Let him go if he wants to.
You don't control everyone just because they wear your patch.
The young man hesitated,
Then took another step back.
arms loose at his sides.
He didn't say a word. His eyes, though they were wide, scared even.
Not of Gloria, but of what she seemed to know. I was pulled into the tail end of that case in Red Bluff, Gloria continued.
Addressing the group now, a girl disappeared.
Local law enforcement found blood,
A torn jacket.
and tire marks near an old barn.
Nobody.
No suspects willing to talk, but one name kept coming up.
Ridge.
No last name. No fixed address. She turned back to Mason. It stayed open for years. Quiet. Buried under newer cases. But some of us don't forget the ones that end with silence. Mason looked like a cornered animal now, caught between anger and fear. Not sure which one to lean into. "You want to accuse me of something?"
He said.
Voice louder.
Go ahead. Say it. I'll wait. You don't need me to say anything.
Gloria replied. Because the moment you laid eyes on me, your mouth started doing the work for me. He took a sharp step forward.
Lady.
I don't know who you think you are.
You do.
She interrupted.
You know exactly who I am.
Or at least the kind of person I used to be. A car pulled up nearby. The driver didn't get out, he just watched. A couple across the street had stopped walking. Another woman held her phone low by her side, still recording. Gloria pointed toward Mason's left arm.
That tattoo on your bicep.
That's the wolf snare symbol. Only 6 people were ever photographed with that symbol.
Tied to open cases between 1996 and 2003.
3 are dead. 2 are still serving life.
And one, well,
One changed his name and started running with a crew in the Deep South. Mason's mouth opened. No words came out. You think because the files were sealed, no one would ever link you to it again. She continued. You think your face doesn't age in a way that leaves traces. He took another step back.
just slightly. But that step said everything. You're bluffing.
He muttered.
You're sweating.
Gloria replied. One of the older bikers let out a breath and looked down at the ground. The air was thick now, not with tension, but with consequence, the kind that comes when truth catches up after years of running.
I'm not here to ruin your life.
Gloria said. But if you thought humiliating me would be easy.
You've already ruined your own.
Just when the moment couldn't get more intense, sirens echoed from down the road.
The sound wasn't loud.
Not yet, but it was close enough to make everyone look down the road. Mason's jaw tightened, but he didn't move. The rest of his crew stood frozen. A few looked at each other, unsure whether to stand their ground or pretend they had nothing to do with what was happening. A Yazoo County Sheriff's cruiser pulled up.
Lights flashing.
Behind the wheel was Sheriff Dalton Briggs, a big man in his late 50s with a mustache that had seen better years and a habit of listening more than talking. He stepped out slowly, hand resting on his belt, scanning the scene. His eyes passed over Gloria,
Then stopped.
his face didn't change much, but something in his gaze softened. Miss Gloria,
He said, tone neutral.
Gloria nodded once. Sheriff Dalton looked toward the bikers.
Then to the growing crowd. What's going on here? She's accusing me of something. Mason cut in,
Trying to take control of the moment, saying things she can't prove.
getting folks all riled up over nothing.
Dalton didn't answer him. He looked at Gloria again.
You okay? I'm fine, she said.
But I need you to run a name for me.
Ridge.
Also known as Mason Hurst. I believe you'll find a sealed file connected to Red Bluff.
California.
Barn incident. March 14th.
96.
Dalton blinked slowly, as if the request had just taken him a mile deep into his own memory.
You sure about that?
I wouldn't waste your time if I wasn't.
Dalton didn't ask anything else.
He stepped back into his cruiser, pulled out his laptop,
And typed something in.
the bikers started shifting again, quiet muttering.
Nervous glances toward Mason.
The young one who had backed away earlier was now standing a good 10 feet from the group. 3 minutes passed.
Then Dalton stepped out again.
His expression was no longer calm, it was tight.
Serious.
And now he was looking straight at Mason.
You got a lot of explaining to do, he said. What are you talking about?
Mason snapped. Defensive.
That's a sealed file. You can't. Dalton cut him off. That's not the point.
Point is, you've got a record that goes back further than what you gave when you rolled into this county. Your license was flagged with an alias. He stepped closer, and now we've got multiple witnesses, video footage, and a woman with federal clearance who just dropped your real name in front of half the town.
A murmur rippled through the crowd.
Someone whispered, she used to work for the government.
Another said,
She knew about the barn. That case was real. Mason turned in a slow circle, watching his world crack open right in front of him.
His crew didn't say a word. No one moved to defend him.
They weren't loyal, they were scared. Dalton finally looked at him squarely.
I'm not arresting you right now, he said, but you are coming with me for questioning.
And depending on what I find in that file,
And who picks up the phone when I call California. You might be staying longer than you think.
Mason stepped forward,
Like he might resist.
but then he caught Gloria's eye. She didn't look smug. She didn't look angry. She looked calm, almost like she felt sorry for him.
That's what broke him.
He lowered his head and walked toward the cruiser. Dalton opened the back door.
And Mason got in without another word.
The sheriff turned to Gloria.
I didn't know you were keeping tabs on this kind of thing. I wasn't, she said quietly.
But some people don't deserve to stay hidden. Dalton gave a slow nod.
If you ever want a job in the department. No, thank you.
I already did my time.
Dalton didn't press her.
He simply said, appreciate the help.
And got in the cruiser.
The lights flicked on. The car pulled away. The crowd didn't cheer.
They didn't clap.
They just stood there,
Stunned.
looking at a woman they'd seen 100 times before and realizing they never really saw her at all. But what happened next turned the whole town upside down. The news spread through Yazoo County faster than a summer storm. By the time the sun dipped below the trees, nearly everyone in town had heard that Gloria Mays, yes, that Miss Gloria had exposed a wanted man in the middle of the day,
Like she was reading from a grocery list.
at the beauty shop on Oak Street. Women paused their rollers and dryers to replay clips from their phones.
At the barber shop.
Old men passed around grainy videos between chess games and Coke bottles.
And at Davis Grocery.
Folks lingered longer than usual, hoping to catch a glimpse of Gloria, like she might step back into the store at any moment and do it all over again. But Gloria wasn't interested in the attention. She was home, sitting on the back porch of her single-story house with a mason jar of sweet tea and her favorite chair angled toward her rose bushes. Her walker sat folded beside her, untouched. The same neighbor boy who used to mow her lawn was now watching her like she was part of history.
And in a way, maybe she was Miss Gloria.
Called a voice from across the fence.
It was Patricia Langdon.
A middle-aged woman with a mouth too quick and a heart too soft. She walked over with a covered dish in her hands. I made cornbread.
Heard you had quite the day.
Gloria smiled politely and took the dish.
Appreciate it. Patricia lingered.
Is it true what people are saying? Gloria didn't answer right away. She wiped her hand on her apron and motioned for Patricia to sit in the chair beside her, the one with the cushion that sank just a little too much in the middle.
What are they saying?
Gloria finally asked.
Patricia chuckled.
That you used to be some kind of secret agent.
That you took down a gang leader without even raising your voice. That you knew stuff about him nobody else did.
Real movie kind of stuff. Gloria took a slow sip of tea. People see what they want. And sometimes they finally see what they've been ignoring for years.
Patricia tilted her head. So you're not denying it.
Gloria set her tea down. I'm saying there are things I've done,
Places I've been.
that don't belong in everyday conversation. But sometimes the past comes knocking, and you either answer it or you let it run wild. The two sat in silence for a moment. The air was still, the cicadas just beginning to hum in the distance.
I'll tell you this.
Gloria added. That man thought mocking an old woman made him powerful. But power isn't about noise.
It's about truth.
And when the truth is on your side,
You don't have to shout.
Patricia nodded slowly. I think you scared the hell out of half the county.
Good.
Gloria said with a faint smirk. Maybe now they'll think twice before underestimating someone with gray hair and a slow step. A pickup truck rolled by slowly. The driver gave a small wave. Gloria raised her hand in return, nothing flashy, just acknowledgement. The young man from the biker crew, the one with the nervous tick, showed up 2 days later.
Alone, no bike, no vest.
Just a plain t-shirt and jeans. He stood by her gate, hands in his pockets, waiting until she noticed him.
I didn't know.
He said once she waved him over. About what he did.
I didn't know he was hiding something like that. Most people don't.
Gloria replied. That's how men like him stay in charge. I left the crew,
He said.
I didn't want to be part of something built on that kind of lie. Gloria nodded.
Then don't just walk away.
Do something better with what you've learned.
He didn't say much after that.
Just thanked her and walked off.
By the weekend, the motorcycles were gone.
The noise faded.
What remained was the memory of what happened that day and a quiet,
Unshakable respect for the woman who changed everything without ever raising her voice. But Gloria had one more thing to say, something simple but worth remembering. 3 days after it all went down, Gloria stood in her garden, gently pruning her rose bushes. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting a soft light over the rows of blooms she'd been tending for over a decade. Her hands moved slowly, carefully, no shaking, no hesitation. Behind her, the screen door creaked open.
Her niece,
Veronica Boone, had flown in from Jackson the night before. She was still rubbing sleep from her eyes, holding a mug of coffee as she walked out onto the porch.
I just read about you on someone's blog, Veronica said.
Said you cracked open a 20-something-year-old cold case like you were peeling an orange. Gloria didn't look up. She clipped a dead leaf from a stem and let it fall.
I didn't crack anything, she said.
I just reminded a man that lies don't expire. Veronica stepped down from the porch and into the yard.
You really never told me any of it. Auntie,
The army stuff, the intelligence work.
I thought you were just retired.
I am retired, Gloria replied. Retired doesn't mean empty. It just means I've earned my silence. Veronica stood still for a moment, watching her aunt the way she held the shears, the way her shoulders were steady, and her eyes always scanned the perimeter, even when she pretended not to.
You scared the hell out of that man, she said. I wasn't trying to scare him. I was trying to stop him. You think you did? I don't know,
Gloria said. But I made him stop talking long enough to hear the truth.
That's more than most ever get.
She walked over to the porch steps and slowly sat down. Sighing as she settled into the wood, her bones ached not from fear, not from confrontation,
But from living, you know what gets me, she said after a moment.
how people still look at someone with wrinkles and think that person's life is behind them. Veronica sat beside her. I don't think that anymore.
Good.
Because aging doesn't mean fading. It just means you've survived more chapters than most are even brave enough to start. She picked up her tea from the porch rail and took a sip. Sometimes people like that biker. They only feel powerful when they've got someone smaller to push down. They don't recognize strength unless it comes with shouting or fists. But real strength, it's quiet.
It walks steady. It remembers. It waits.
Veronica looked at her aunt like she was seeing her for the first time, not as the sweet older woman who sent birthday cards early and always brought cornbread to church potlucks, but as someone who had lived a second life beneath the one everyone else thought they knew. And if there's one thing I hope this town learned, Gloria added,
It's that you don't get to decide someone's value just by looking at them.
everyone has history. Some of it is just harder to recognize. She paused, then added with a faint smile,
And if you don't want your secrets dragged into the daylight,
you might want to think twice before laughing at someone who's already lived more than you'll ever dare to. That afternoon, someone from the local paper knocked on her door. They wanted to do a full feature pictures, interviews, a headline that called her a hero. Gloria politely declined. She didn't want her face plastered across gas stations and waiting rooms.
I don't need to be known, she told them.
I just needed to be heard. They left empty-handed, and Gloria returned to her porch, where her peace was waiting. We live in a world quick to judge and slow to understand. This story wasn't about revenge. It was about recognition, about respect, and about the quiet kind of courage that comes with time. If this story made you stop and think, even for a second, subscribe to the channel, because sometimes the strongest voices come from the people we overlook. And their stories, they're the ones we need to hear the most.